Imagine a battlefield stretching for miles, shaking from the roar of engines and the thunder of cannons. This isn't science fiction. It was the reality of the Battle of Kursk in the summer of 1943, the largest and most brutal tank battle in human history. Over 6,000 tanks, 2 million soldiers, and thousands of aircraft clashed in a conflict that would forever change the course of World War II. It was a collision of steel, strategy, and sheer will, a battle that became the ultimate turning point on the Eastern Front. So, how did this monumental clash come to be, and why was it so decisive? Let's dive into the story of the battle that broke the back of the German war machine. In early 1943, after the devastating defeat at Stalingrad, Germany was desperate to regain the upper hand. Hitler planned a massive offensive, codenamed Operation Citadel. The goal was to encircle and destroy a huge concentration of Soviet forces in the Kursk salient, bulge in the front line that jutted deep into German-held territory. This was meant to be Germany's comeback, a decisive blow to cripple the Red Army and restore the myth of German invincibility. It was an all-or-nothing gamble, Hitler's last major offensive on the Eastern Front. He threw everything he had into it, deploying his best generals and his newest, most powerful weapons, the fearsome Tiger and Panther tanks. Germany believed these technologically advanced panzers were unstoppable and would smash through Soviet defenses with ease. Stakes couldn't have been higher. A victory at Kursk would have allowed Germany to stabilize the front and perhaps even turn the tide of the war. Failure would be catastrophic. But the Soviets knew what was coming. Thanks to a sophisticated network of intelligence, including spies and frontline reconnaissance, the Red Army had detailed information about Germany's plans. Instead of launching a preemptive strike, the Soviet High Command, led by Marshals Zhukov and Vasilevsky, made a brilliant and risky decision. They would let the Germans attack first. They would absorb the initial blow, grind down the elite German panzer divisions, and then unleash their own massive counteroffensive. To achieve this, the Soviets turned the Kursk salient into the most heavily fortified area in military history. They built a defense-in-depth system that was staggering in scale. Over 500,000 civilians and soldiers worked tirelessly to dig hundreds of miles of trenches and anti-tank ditches. They laid over 400,000 landmines, creating dense minefields that were a tanker's worst nightmare. Behind these lines, thousands of anti-tank guns and artillery pieces were strategically positioned in well-camouflaged nests, ready to create a wall of fire. This defensive web was designed to bleed the German attack dry, to trap and destroy their powerful tanks before they could break through. It was a strategy of patience, endurance, and calculated sacrifice. When Operation Citadel finally launched on July 5, 1943, the Germans charged into this deadly trap. The battlefield immediately became a chaotic inferno. German tanks, including the heavily armored Tigers, found themselves struggling through minefields under a relentless storm of artillery and anti-tank fire. The new Panther tanks, rushed into service for the battle, were plagued by mechanical failures. Their engines overheated and their transmissions broke down, leaving them stranded and vulnerable on the battlefield. While the German tanks were technologically superior in terms of armor and firepower, they were outnumbered and faced significant logistical problems. They were complex, difficult to repair, and consumed vast amounts of fuel, which was in short supply. In contrast, the Soviet T-34 tank was a masterpiece of wartime engineering. It was simpler, faster, and far more reliable. What it lacked in heavy armor compared to the Tiger, it made up for in mobility, numbers, and ease of production. The Soviets could produce T-34s at an incredible rate, ensuring they always had more tanks to throw into the fight. The sloping armor of the T-34 also gave it a surprising degree of protection, often causing German shells to ricochet. This clash of philosophies, German quality versus Soviet quantity and reliability, came to a head in the fields around Kursk. The Red Army's strategy was working. The German advance was slow, costly, and bloody. They were gaining ground, but only by inches and at a terrible price. The climax of the battle occurred on July 12th, near a small village called Prokhorovka. This became the epicenter of the largest tank engagement in history. Here, hundreds of German and Soviet tanks clashed at point-blank range in a chaotic, swirling melee. It wasn't a neat, orderly battle of tactics. It was a brutal, desperate brawl. Visibility was almost zero due to the thick black smoke from burning tanks, and the dust kicked up by explosions. Tanks rammed into each other, fired at ranges of just a few yards, and crews fought with a ferocity born of desperation. The powerful long-range guns of the German Tigers were less effective in such close quarters, while the nimble Soviet T-34s could swarm them, firing at their weaker side and rear armor. The fields of Prokhorovka became a graveyard of twisted steel, littered with the blackened hulls of hundreds of tanks from both sides. It was a vision of hell on earth, a brutal testament to the sheer destructive power of industrial warfare. Although the losses were staggering for both armies, the Germans could not afford them. Their elite panzer divisions were shattered. While the tanks battled on the ground, an equally ferocious struggle was taking place in the skies above. The Battle of Kursk featured one of the largest air battles in history, with thousands of aircraft from the German Luftwaffe and the Soviet Air Force fighting for control of the air. German Stuka dive bombers and Focke-Wulf fighters dueled with Soviet Yak and Lavokin fighters and the famous Il-2 Sturmovik ground attack aircraft. The sky was a constant storm of dogfights, anti-aircraft fire, and bombing runs. The Il-2, nicknamed the flying tank by soldiers, was particularly effective. Heavily armored and armed with cannons, rockets, and bombs, it wreaked havoc on German tank columns and troop formations. The Soviets had learned from their earlier defeats and had significantly improved their air tactics and pilot training. They challenged the Luftwaffe's dominance like never before. Control of the air was critical. It allowed for reconnaissance, protected ground forces from attack, and enabled bombers to strike enemy positions. The intense air battle over Kursk added another layer of chaos and destruction to an already brutal conflict, ensuring that there was no safe place on the battlefield. After the brutal fighting at Prokhorovka, it was clear that the German offensive had failed. Operation Citadel was called off. Hitler was forced to divert forces to Italy, where the Allies had just landed in Sicily, opening up another front. But for the Red Army, this was just the beginning. They had absorbed the punch, and now it was their turn to strike back. The Soviets launched two massive counteroffensives: Operation Kutuzov to the north of Kursk and Operation Rumyantsov to the south. With their armored reserves now committed, the exhausted and depleted German forces were in no position to stop them. The Red Army, bolstered by fresh reserves, smashed through the German lines. They liberated major cities like Orel and Kharkov in a powerful westward push. From this point on, Germany permanently lost the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. The war of movement that the Germans had perfected was now being used against them by the Soviets. The Red Army was on a relentless advance that would not stop until it reached Berlin. The Battle of Kursk was more than just a military victory for the Soviet Union. It was a profound psychological turning point. It shattered the myth of German military superiority once and for all. Before Kursk, many still believed that German technology, training, and strategy were unbeatable. But at Kursk, the Red Army demonstrated that it had evolved into a formidable, modern fighting force. Soviet commanders showed sophisticated strategic planning. Their soldiers fought with incredible courage and resilience, and their equipment, particularly the T-34 tank, proved to be perfectly suited for the brutal realities of the Eastern Front. The victory boosted the morale of the entire Soviet Union and of the Allies around the world. It proved that Hitler's war machine was not invincible and could be defeated through a combination of strategic depth, industrial might, and sheer determination. The defeat at Kursk had devastating long-term consequences for Germany. The battle had consumed the last of its strategic reserves on the Eastern Front. The elite panzer divisions, the spearhead of the German army, were so badly mauled that they never fully recovered their former strength. Germany lost not only thousands of its best soldiers and most advanced tanks, but also its ability to launch major strategic offensives in the east. From the summer of 1943 onward, the German army was forced into a long, brutal, and ultimately hopeless defensive struggle. They were caught in a two-front war they could not win, being squeezed by the advancing Soviets in the east and the Western Allies in Italy and later in France. The road to Berlin was now open, and the decline of the Third Reich was irreversible. In conclusion, the Battle of Kursk was a true epic of World War II. It wasn't just the largest tank battle in history. It was a complex collision of strategy, industry, intelligence, and human endurance. The Soviet Union's brilliant defensive plan, their massive industrial capacity, and the incredible sacrifice of their soldiers turned the tide of the war in the east. Kursk marked the beginning of the end for Germany. It was a battle that demonstrated that victory in modern war depends not just on superior technology, but on strategy, logistics, and the unbreakable will to win. The fiery fields of Kursk became the graveyard of Germany's hopes for victory and a monument to the resilience that led to the Allied triumph in World War II. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into history fascinating, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that shaped our world. Let us know in the comments what other historical battles you'd like to see covered. See you in the next video.